Hello and welcome back to Fresh Rubber. We are here to celebrate the anointment of a new president of the George Russell fan club. George Russell himself. He'd like to congratulate himself and thank himself for his fortitude, his ability to bounce back and withstand pressure and cruise to victory at the 2026 Austrian Grand Prix. What do you think, Gab? Is it 3 cheers all round for the man from, what is it,
Stevenage? I don't think we need to congratulate George, because I think from basically P3 onwards, he was congratulating himself consistently, as he always does. It's hard to watch George win. Let's be honest, it's hard to watch him win because he is so happy with himself. Doesn't talk about anyone else's successes, just talks about his. Says things like yabba dabba doo when he wins a race, which just made my whole, I don't want to talk about which bit of my anatomy just sucked up back inside my body. But yeah, look, the return of the king. I don't know. Look, it's good that he's won one, right? He's won 2 now. He's won 2.
He's won 2 in a row and 3 in total. No, 4 in total.
What do you mean 2 in a row?
Well, oh no, sorry, I misremembered Spain. Forget that faux pas. Sorry,
No,
he's
Lewis.
won 2.
He's won 2.
Lewis. Yeah, I stand corrected.
Yeah, it is. It's such an interesting race for so many reasons, which we'll break apart. But Jace, how good was it to see the top 3 cross the line in under 2 seconds? This is the tightness in the pack. No one really wants someone to be 20 seconds ahead and running away with it. No one wants that. Max was putting on pressure towards the end. Kimi was right behind in third, putting pressure on Max. It was a fight to the bitter end. How good was it to have it finish with top 3 under 2 seconds? Your thoughts?
It was good. Yes, it was good. But I think I was not unhappy last time round when Hamilton, now that I remember, Hamilton won by 20 seconds back in the Barcelona-Catalonia Grand Prix. And I was very happy with that outcome, in part because it was a signalling maybe a temporary return of the GOAT, but also because he just put on such a strategy masterclass and a driving performance display last round that was just really impressive. That was not the case this round. He tried the strategy masterclass move from the Barcelona Grand Prix, didn't quite pan out at the Austrian Grand Prix, and we can talk about why that is. But yeah, it was a very exciting end to the race. Probably one of those races where you would say George was just managing the pace at the end. He was like comfortable to let the others catch up to him. But it was very thrilling, and I thought, maybe another lap or 2 with the overtake mode, Kimi might have been able to get past Max Verstappen. But then, just the guile, the ability, the strength, the sort of fortitude that Verstappen shows to be able to bounce back from what looked like a pretty big shunt in qualifying in Q3 on Saturday, and to come back and essentially, muscle his way through to a P2 finish, I thought was pretty exciting. I loved seeing the battle, the jousting that happened between Verstappen and Hamilton. To me, that was like a throwback to a bygone era where Max and Hamilton rather were going hammer and tongs at each other week in, week out. What did you think of that little duel kind of mid race between Verstappen and Hamilton?
If my highlights reel existed for this, it would be the Max Hamilton battle. It was absolutely thrilling. It was at a moment in the race where they both had pace and they both had tyres underneath them, and it was just, it was exhilarating. The irony never escapes me when Max gets nudged 1 inch off the track by the most gentlemanly driver we'll probably ever have in Lewis Hamilton at this stage in his career, and starts getting on the radio and crying foul. This is Max Verstappen, who I love now, by the way, who has pushed so many people off the track, who's brute forced his way through so many races, taken penalties sometimes, not, but just doesn't seem to care whether he gets a penalty or not. Will just do it out of pure killer instinct. He gets nudged, I would say, a few centimeters off the track, on a corner by Lewis, and he's on the radio just like, that's got to be a penalty, that's got to be. It's like, come on, Max. But this game, look, this is the game. This is the game that they play. But yes, that was, for me, the most exhilarating point in the race. Talking about Ferrari, one of the theories as to why Ferrari couldn't bring this kind of recent form to this race was to do with the altitude and to do with a kind of smaller turbo unit. Apparently, these kind of smaller turbo units that the Ferrari carry do not operate anywhere near as well in the higher altitudes. It was also an incredibly hot track again today, which, to be fair, didn't stop Lewis in Spain, but the car just wasn't quite there, was it? Like Leclerc, it was almost like Leclerc was just like falling back and back and back and back and just couldn't hold anyone off. So I think, Ferrari, some real questions to answer about how they perform in these situations.
Well, I think maybe they got a bit lucky in Barcelona with the timing of the virtual safety car, which allowed Hamilton to get in and get out with a cheaper pit stop. That didn't quite work out this time. Hamilton was just past the point of pit entry when that opportunity came up. And I think what I noticed from what we saw on the broadcast was the communication between Hamilton and pit wall was a little bit more like the normal communication that we see between
We're so used to. Yeah.
We're so used to. Yeah. So you sort of think, oh, maybe Barcelona was like a flash in the pan, a bit of a blip, and we got a little bit too excited last time round, perhaps, Gav? I don't know.
Well, I think what we saw in Barcelona was
what we wanted to see. We saw what we wanted to see.
But if you think about what we saw in Barcelona between Lewis and his race engineer, was his race engineer surprised that he was doing so well? Surprised maybe that a Ferrari was doing so well? Like the tone of his voice was like, you're doing it. Oh, come on. It was kind of almost like, I can't believe this is happening. Could we actually win a race? And that is not actually encouraging. If you think about it, that's not encouraging. What you want is you want your race engineer to be like, yep, okay, let's just keep pushing. Yep, we're going to do this today. But what you don't want is an Italian going, oh my goodness. So I think you're right. I think nothing has probably culturally changed massively. I think, but look,
maybe a touch of belief. We talked about that last time.
Well,
maybe a touch of belief has been landed, but belief and competence don't always match up, right? So there's an element of the belief might be there. They're still riding on the high of Barcelona, but they haven't quite translated that into sort of a on-track and communication competence that we might desire to see. The other thing I found fascinating about the Ferrari dynamic was that they both tried the three-stop and they both had kind of identical pace, but Leclerc, even though he qualified higher than Hamilton, he just was not able to fend off the attacks from other drivers, and he just kept slipping back and back, as you say, and seeing Hadjar, seeing Norris get past him kind of easily was a little bit disheartening, surely. Whereas at least Hamilton was putting up a fight. Hamilton was doing overtakes. He had a bit of a struggle with the traffic management because it's such a short lap. At the Red Bull Ring, it's literally like a 67-second lap. So there's 22 cars until the retirements. They're all going around. They're going to be lapping each other pretty quickly. So traffic and getting past back markers was a deal at this race. But Hamilton was making moves. He was trying something. He was the only one of the top 15 cars to put on the soft tyre middle of the race. He was the only one who said, let's give that a go. Everyone else was changing onto the hard or going onto the medium for that middle stint. So, at least he was trying something, I suppose, even if it didn't necessarily pan out. He still finished P5. That's respectable.
I mean, it's a double-edged sword. On one hand, what we're seeing with Ferrari is that they're kind of taking a leaf out of Red Bull's taking a leaf out of Red Bull's book and trying something different. They seem to be pitting earlier for undercuts, going for kind of shorter stints, trusting that the drivers can make up anything that they lose back in those stints. That is encouraging. What is not encouraging is when you start a race in P2 for Leclerc and P3 for Hamilton and end up P5 and P8 respectively. That's called going backwards after an incredible quali session, and that's a problem. But I do hear you. I do applaud this fresh kind of verve that Ferrari have. It's just like, we're going to just try something different. They haven't done that for a long time. It's what Red Bull do so well, is to do something that no one else is doing. They're going for undercuts. So it's a double-edged sword. But yeah, I think a tough day for Ferrari to go from P2 and P3 to P5 and P8.
I think in Hamilton's case in particular, it was like the Spain-Barcelona strategy just didn't play out at this track because of the traffic management, because it's such a short lap. And so getting on fresh rubber in Barcelona worked because they had space. The cars were sort of spaced out between each other. There were gaps to pit into, and then you could make the most of the fresh rubber. But if you're pitting onto new tires and then you're immediately in traffic, it's very difficult to actually make use of that advantage. So if you pit one time more than your rivals, that's 22 seconds that you are behind them. So you've got to make the use of the fresh tires to be able to reclaim that 21-second deficit, and it just didn't happen. Didn't happen for him this week. So I think it's a strategy gamble that didn't pay out for him.
Yeah. It's points in the bag. Look, Lewis is only 6 points? Did we say 6 points behind George? He's still in there, and we're going to Silverstone next. And obviously, we'll never forget that kind of victory in the middle of his drought, Lewis's drought at Silverstone. So I think he'll be going home, back to his home race, as will George, feeling somewhat confident. Can we talk a little bit about qualifying? We don't normally touch on qualifying, but there was, Kimi is obviously our championship leader. He's been smashing it. He's still a massive chunk ahead of George, his teammate. But something went wrong for Kimi in quali, didn't it? We had, and I wonder, for those who didn't watch quali, there was a single yellow flag, and then which should have probably been a double yellow flag. So it started as a single, it turned into a double, but Kimi, potentially with a lack of experience, read in the final section, the final minutes of quali, read a single yellow flag as a double, and he aborted his final quali lap. Now, just to be clear, he was about a tenth behind George in the first two sectors, so George probably, unless Kimi pulled something really powerful out of the bag, it probably would have been a front row lockout for Mercedes. But George had the wherewithal to see that it was a single yellow. He just lifted, which satisfies the FIA in terms of regulations, saw the green on the next board and ploughed on and took pole. What did you make of that situation?
Doesn't it astound you that George Russell lifted, and he still finished on pole more than 2/10 ahead of the Ferraris?
Yeah.
That's really something. On such a short lap, when it's a 66-second lap to get around the Red Bull ring, to have lifted coming into that second last corner and still finish 2.5 tenths ahead.
He was on a flyer.
Is astonishing. So kudos to George Russell. I think it was Kimi who passed by first. So he had the least amount of notice and time to see what was happening. I think that actually it's a shame that the timing of it happened as it was, because I think it probably should have been a red flag, considering the speed at which they come around turn 9, and it's a blind corner. If any one of them had the same kind of mishap, or had the same kind of back end stepping out that Verstappen experienced, they could have been right at the scene of the accident as well. So it's quite a dangerous thing to happen. In terms of whether or not Kimi did the right thing, I think he would regret, and he seemed to regret afterwards making that choice. But you got so little time to actually react, and you're looking at your steering wheel, you're trying to find the apex of the corner. There's a yellow panel flashing on the left. There weren't any yellow flags near the corner as well, so it's really not a lot of information to process in half a blink of an eye. It's such a difficult thing for any driver to do, and yet it had such a big outcome on the race. I'd say for Antonelli, his chance of winning was gone at that last 2 corners of Q3 on Saturday. And for George, it's what made the race for him. Yes, he had to actually go through and deliver when it comes to Sunday, but I guess the timing of it. And it's a little bit like, what we saw with the engine failures that we've had throughout the season. What goes around comes around. Sometimes the luck goes your way, sometimes it goes the other way. But my contention would be that Kimi lost the Grand Prix, the opportunity to win the Grand Prix at that final 2 turns on Q3 on Saturday. What do you think of that, Gav?
I totally agree. What I'm seeing this season is that when something goes wrong for Kimi, George sweeps in and capitalizes. That's what I'm seeing. George DNFs, Kimi DNFs, George gets the points. Kimi mistakes a single yellow for a double yellow, George sweeps in. I don't think that luck can continue to go George's way for the rest of the season. So, and I just think Kimi's quicker. I just think
Fascinating.
I just think he's quicker. I rate George as a driver. He's consistent. He's reliable. He's fast. But I just think as soon as some of these gremlins go away for Kimi, if he gets just a clean run at it, I think he'll beat his teammate almost every single time, is what I feel. And I think Kimi, I'm just going to lay it down, I think Kimi will win this year. And I think he'll win on just raw pace and hunger.
That's interesting. So Kimi was faster in P1 and P2.
Yep.
George bounced back in P3 and then qualified higher in quali, probably by a 10th or so. So it wasn't a huge margin that he would have had if Kimi had finished his lap. So on the balance of those 2 days, they're about even. Then come race day, from what I could see looking at the sort of the trace of the laps and the timing, George was actually very consistent in the race. He had clean air. He didn't have much to worry about except for, I guess, overheating and backmarker traffic. But he didn't have much work to do aside from, just driving the laps. And Kimi had the scruffiest first stint. He was off track twice on the first lap. He went off track again 1 or 2 laps later. And his lap times compared to George were just all over the place. So in that first stint, I think afterwards he said he got a little bit too excited. And I think that's right. He in the heat of the moment, he's a young kid, he's trying to do his best, he's leading the championship, teammates going off ahead. He didn't have himself in hand. When it comes to the second and the third stint, Antonelli, his consistency really tightened up in that second stint. And then his pace in the third stint was astonishing. I think he set the fastest lap of the race in that third stint. And he was clawing back the time to Verstappen. But then also he had, from memory, he had brake issues. He was having issues with confidence and getting around the corners. His lap times kind of showed that. So it was just, I think, like a scruffy end to the weekend for Antonelli. And it's amazing, isn't it, that the kind of narrative around it was like, can he come back all the way from P4? P4 is such a poor qualifying position for this kid. And then he made it back to the podium. And that's like a kind of a bad outcome for him because he didn't get P2. I mean, the expectations around Antonelli are sky high. And maybe we're a part of that. But it's just nuts, don't you think? Like the level of expectation that we're now putting on this kid's head to win the championship, which I hope he does. Man, I wouldn't want to be in his position right now. Just the level of expectation, eyes on him.
We're a couple of races into the European leg and he's performing, right? So I think we had some concerns with the ghosts of last year of the European section of the calendar caused him trouble. I think he's past that.
But he did DNF in Spain.
Yeah, but that really wasn't his fault, was it, when your car doesn't work? But listen, I think, Kimi in the first lap, in turn 1 and turn 3 ran wide. He is, I think, the champing at the bit, the kind of the nervous, excited energy, the rawness is so there. And interestingly, Toto Wolff, the team principal of Mercedes, was interviewed straight after the race. And they kind of said, oh, it was quite scrappy from Kimi. He was going off track. And Toto said something that I think will always stick with me. He said, look, you can't speed up a donkey, but you can, but you can, but you can calm down a stallion. You can't speed up a
Wow.
donkey, but you can calm down a stallion. And he said, Kimi's a stallion. He's full of energy. He's full of raw pace and excitement and nervous energy and inexperience. But he's fast, and we can work with him to get that energy under control. But what you can't do is make a donkey go faster. So I just thought, yes, yes. So Toto's job, I think, as he sees it, is like, look, he needs to bring this speed and this energy somehow into maturity, is how I see it. And I have no doubt that he will.
There's a similar analogy about cars, which is you can make a fast car reliable, but you can't make a reliable car fast. And it's kind of a parallel equivalent to that. Yeah, fascinating. I think in a way, he's really lucky to be where he is at Mercedes. And that's partly because they're giving him a stallion of a car. You know, this year, the Mercedes has won all but one of the races so far. And they've got all of the pole positions and nearly all of the fastest laps. They're just missing out on two of the races so far. Oh, actually three. But the thing of it is, he also has a Toto and he has a Bono and presumably an army of others around him that have been there before, have done it before. They know how to win. They know how to manage a stallion. They had Lewis Hamilton. They had the GOAT of the stallions, who ironically is now racing for the prancing horse. I think there's a nice kind of symmetry to that. They've been there before. They've done it before. They've seen how to make it work. And I just think if Kimi was at a Red Bull, let's say, or heaven forbid at a McLaren, they just don't have what it takes to get winning happening generally. You know, what we see frequently with Red Bull is they know how to make Max win. Like, they're really good at that. But other drivers, not so much. And if Max leaves, who the hell knows how that team's going to perform. Although Hadjar had a decent weekend. And with McLaren, similarly, they don't have the winning ways, you know, under their belt as it is. But Toto, his style of leadership, the way that Mercedes kind of rallies around the driver, makes it work. I don't know. I think he's in the best possible place to win this season. And I hope and pray that it's not Russell that wins at the end of the year. If it is a challenger, let it be Lewis. Let him go out on a blaze of glory, because I don't think we could handle the smug. I just don't think we could handle the immense layers of smug that will emanate all around the paddock if it is George Russell ends up on the top of the podium at the end of the season.
You can imagine the final race, him crossing the line, winning, saying "Yabba dabba doo." No, we can't have this. We won't have this. We don't. We reject it now. Interesting. You talk about Max. You know, this blurry place where rumours and reality mix, but I think it is pretty. It has been confirmed that Max's management has had conversations with McLaren. The idea being that Max could potentially come and team up with Lando, and Piastri would be a straight swap over to Red Bull. And Max's manager this week said this kind of chilling statement. It starts really nicely and ends with a massive sting in the tail. He said, Max would love to drive for Red Bull, but not in the midfield. And which is really interesting to me. I mean, I don't need to decode that for you, dear listener. That basically means like Max isn't going to stick around if he's qualifying P6, P7, having to fight up to, you know, whatever it is. But that said, this Red Bull package that they've given him, and even Max's comments after the race, this Red Bull package they've given him for this latest race looks pretty mighty. He was, you know, I don't think George was comfortable at all. This wasn't George running off down the track, you know, kind of 10, 15, 20 seconds. This was him, you know, I just don't think George was comfortable at the end of that race. I think his tyres were going off, and I think Max's sheer brilliance was catching him. In fact, I would even argue that given like 10 to 12 laps more, both Max and Kimi would have gone past George. So I think I think what we really want going forward is a mighty Red Bull package to really kind of put the cat amongst the pigeons with Mercedes, don't we? We don't want Mercedes just to run away with this.
No, not at all. And I think you're right that the Red Bull in the hands of Verstappen was mighty this weekend. He was so close on pace to Russell. Hadjar less so. He was very consistent in his pace, but nowhere near as fast. It was 0.3 or so slower than Max, kind of on average. So there's definitely something to that, and I wouldn't call the Red Bull package with Max a midfield car this weekend.
No,
but something else that jumps out at me from qualifying is, did you notice how close it was for Max to get knocked out in Q2? He almost didn't make it.
Amazing.
He almost didn't make it. Pierre Gasly was like 0.006 of a second behind him, and I was thinking about this afterwards. Just imagine if it was Gasly who got into Q3 and not Verstappen, because it was Verstappen who then later crashed at the end of qualifying, resulting in a P5 finish, but also affecting the outcome with Russell and Antonelli. So if it hadn't been if Gasly qualified ahead, would Gasly have crashed? Probably not. Verstappen wouldn't have crashed, and we wouldn't have had that whole controversy around yellow flags, single, double, whether they show up on the panel or not, which I didn't find that exciting, in the lead up to the race. But the whole
to me,
whole picture would have been different, right?
Quali was, for me, Quali was better than the race. There was just so much. Listen, Jace, I just want the drama, the kind of the single yellow, double yellow controversy, just waiting with bated breath, the data coming through, kind of no one knew what was going on. I flipping love those moments in F1. I was just dead certain that George was going to get his lap time deleted, and of course he didn't. But yeah, the Max moment was epic. So basically what Red Bull did is they wanted two pairs of softs for Q3 for the final qualifying session. And they thought Max was safe, and like you say, it was 0.04 of a second that Gasly was behind him. If Gasly had just taken one corner just a fraction tighter, Max would have been knocked out in Q2 and would have been starting P11. So I love that. And they were talking afterwards. The team principal of Red Bull was Merkes was talking afterwards and saying, look, we don't like that kind of risk, but today often that risk doesn't pay off, but today it did. So Max made it into Q3 with two pairs of softs. Unfortunately, in his attempt to chase down the Mercedes, he put it in the wall. But again, another stroke of luck for Red Bull. He put it in the wall at P5, so he didn't even get bumped to P10. He got it in the wall and secured himself a P5. No, I thought qualifying, that was probably my favourite qualifying of the season so far.
Another FP1 session where it was a bit meh with all the rookies.
Yeah.
Go away, rookies. I'm not interested. Sorry. Be gone. And also Lando Norris had some kind of issue with his car, so he didn't even get out into FP1 for at least like the first 50 minutes of it. So it was another track where I guess the drivers are pretty familiar with the Red Bull Ring. They've been around it often enough. It's a short track. They've been there many times. But at the temperatures that we saw on the weekend, and with this generation of cars, they really do need that time on track. Leclerc, he missed out on FP1 and he qualified poorly, raced poorly. Norris missed out on FP1 because of issues with his car, and he qualified, I don't know, P6 I think it was, and then he finished around the same. Maybe a bit lower. It's like this season it seems like practice time is actually critical. If you miss the practice session, you really are on the back foot in a way that we just haven't seen in recent seasons where they've been, I guess, more familiar with the cars. And maybe we haven't had the same kind of temperature craziness that we're seeing at the moment. So there's something about it is that if you miss FP1, woe betide you, because you are not going to do well. It almost like sets the tone of the rest of your race, of the rest of the weekend.
Yep. Little fun fact for you, Jace. There's 41 points between Kimi and George. Okay, so George has 41 points to find against Kimi. Lewis and Charles is like 46. Like, what is happening with Charles this year? Like, Lewis is on 125, Charles on 79. There's 46 points between them. Like that's like it's just inconceivable to me this year, because I felt like last year Leclerc was just dominating Hamilton, and it felt like Hamilton was just about to kind of give up on F1, and now he like Lewis is just dominating Charles. What do you think's going on there? Do you have any sense of what you think might have changed for Charles? Is it just been bad luck? Is he just uncomfortable with these new cars? Can he just not drive them?
I think it's a lot of it's a head game for Leclerc, and I think we talked about it last time round about the sort of uncertainty that he feels now with his own setup, and he's chasing Lewis's setup. He was changing his brake
Yeah,
pads last round, so there's a kind of he's unsettled, right? He's been in this team for yonks, and he's kind of bolted on Ferrari, and he's got some lengthy contract extension, so he's going to be there for a while longer. But he's rattled. Lewis's performance this year has him rattled, I think, and it's affecting him in that he's not getting the right setup, or he's finding that he's chasing a setup that he's not familiar with. He's changing parts. This weekend he missed FP1, and that doesn't help. So there's a bunch of things that I think are going against Charles' sort of innate talent and capability to perform.
yeah,
It's a mental game, and maybe it's got some similarities to what the McLaren boys went through last year, different ways on both sides of the garage, just kind of getting in your head. If you remember, Piastri, when he crashed in Azerbaijan, he crashed in qualifying, and then he crashed on lap one, and then he had a slump for about 5 or 6 races
yeah.
where he basically did not perform. He just kind of didn't show up. I think there really is something to this kind of the yips, or the kind of performance anxiety that gets in the head game and the headspace of these drivers.
Yeah.
And when it's flowing, it's beautiful. I tell you what, I'm looking forward to the British Grand Prix, and I'm so happy that it's just literally days away now, because I love that circuit, and I can't wait to see what the teams are able to pull out of the bag at such a very different circuit compared to the Red Bull Ring, which is up in the mountains where your car's going to catch fire and there's lovely scenery all around you, right down to the flat former airfield that is Silverstone, and this much longer lap time. It's going to be fascinating to see how different the performances of the teams. That's the other thing that I wanted to get your take on. It's whilst we have a very dominant season for Mercedes, and Mercedes is just winning everything, it actually hasn't been like a runaway train. There have been times where the other teams have actually pulled off surprise victories, or have actually made the Mercedes look like they didn't have the right package. And it's a great season that we're having for that kind of variability. You don't know turning up each week that one team is going to dominate. Like, that's my vibe. Do you feel the same way, Gav?
I totally feel that way. I feel like we knew very quickly that Mercedes had race pace. We knew that they'd actually finally, after all these years since the glory days, designed like the probably holistically the best package. But then do you remember those first 3 or 4 races of this season where they would qualify ahead of everyone, and then Ferrari's like mini turbo would just beat them off the line every single time? It was like, now that's settled down, and it seems like the other teams have caught up with that kind of off the line speed. Kimi's learnt how to start a race finally, which is really, really crucial for him, rather than having to come from, kind of fourth or fifth and take it back. But like I said at the beginning of the podcast, the fact that 3 drivers finished within under 2 seconds is encouraging to me as a fan and a viewer. It means the game is on. I do think it's probably going to be Max bringing it to Mercedes. I think Ferrari maybe a close third. McLaren, it's just so hard to say what McLaren have got. Like, I'm longing for them. Like, they're the masters of bringing kind of upgrades at the second half of the year. So, I'm really hoping that McLaren kind of figure it out and bring a competitive car. Because all I want this year as a non-partisan fan, I got my Lando win last year. I decided, as we've talked about, not to root for anyone because it just causes me sleepless nights, deep trauma and haunting.
And we shouldn't laugh about it.
We shouldn't laugh about it because I was troubled. I was a troubled person. All I want is just for there to be a real fight. Every single race, I want another team to dominate, and I'm really hoping we continue to see that. It feels like it. I don't know what you feel, but it feels like it could go any way more than ever this season.
The potential is there, and I highlight that Piastri and Norris are now ahead of Leclerc in the Drivers' Championship.
Yeah.
So the fight is definitely on, and I wonder if this season we might actually see a record comeback. I think it was 58 points that Russell had to overcome Kimi's lead a couple of races ago. He's clawed it back to 41 points.
41.
I think the belief is there. Certainly, the belief has always been there in George Russell's mind, but that he could actually get this done.
Like, the belief is so there in George Russell's mind.
He's got it tattooed on the inside of his eyelids.
Yabba dabba doo.
Hey, the other thing that I found quite weird, and maybe it's an upgrade timing thing, but every time the Red Bull and Ferrari cars open up their straight mode, the wings just look so, like the gap just looks so huge. And then the Mercedes do the same, and they've got this little letterbox sort of gap between their wings. I just think, why haven't they brought their own Macarena-style rear wing? Surely they're losing performance against these other rivals.
Red Bull come through, and it's like it's like the Empire State Building. Like you
can actually pass a football through it. It's just insane.
Hey, talking of Red Bull, shout out to Hadjar. Look, I know he's been a whining little so-and-so, and he's got his temper tantrums and stuff. But like, has Max had something like 73-42? It's like, it's not bad. Like, I'm not saying he's on Max's pace, but I feel like, Hadjar's holding his own for like a number 2 driver. It's not
totally.
He's not being left in the dust. Do you remember in like kind of the real dominant Max kind of era where the whole car was designed towards his pointy, sensitive mouse, super pointy front end style of driving, and just no one would just you kind of get Max, winning a race, and you get like Perez or someone down at like 13th. Like that's not happening this year. I'm like, shout out to Hadjar. You're never going to beat Max. Well, maybe one day you will, but you're not going to beat him for the next couple of years. But like, you're holding your own, and he's fighting like an absolute animal every single race. Temper tantrums or not, he's fighting, and that's kind of what you want to see.
Yeah, and I think the qualifying performance speaks to that, and then also his performance in the race is slower than Max's, but he also had more traffic to deal with, or he's kind of fighting against other drivers, so that loses you a little bit of lap time. But you're right, it's not the sort of slump that we would see from a Perez. And he also finished on the podium in Monaco before the podium penalties kicked him off and he finished P4. So he's definitely a step above when it comes to Verstappen teammates. And like you say, he's not that far behind. He's literally 1 place lower than Verstappen in the Drivers' Championship. He's absolutely holding his own. The other great result for the Red Bull family is that both Lawson and Lindblad finished in the points this weekend essentially at their home race. All four the Red Bull and the Racing Bulls drivers, they're all finished in the points at the Austrian Grand Prix. At the Red Bull fair. Great result for all four of them.
Yeah. Yeah, it's good. It's good. So we like to see. Can we just I think we just need to get rid of Cadillac, probably. I think we don't need 22 cars on the track. I
think they're doing a good job of that themselves, don't you think?
they just retire, and then Aston Martin's not much better. And it breaks my heart for someone of the pedigree of Fernando Alonso to have to drive this absolute dog. No wonder he's standing in Spain being like, "Oh, this is probably my last my last race here." Like the guy's like, I mean, he's just had a kid. He's just had a kid. He's got a family now. Like, does he want to be dragging that awful car around the track? My only hope, I was saying this to my partner the other night, my only hope is that, and maybe to you as well, Jace, that Adrian Newey, he sticks around for one more year and Adrian Newey pulls something out of the bag. But I've been thinking about this Adrian Newey Red Bull thing. It's made me think like, oh, so like we've like kind of worshipped at the kind of the throne of Adrian Newey as this incredible car designer for all these years, and like he designed the Red Bull, the dominant Red Bull car. But like, it just goes to show you can hire an incredible designer of cars, but if you don't have the infrastructure and the team around it to like deliver, and if you don't have the relationship with your power unit producer to kind of make those things meld, then it doesn't really matter if you're Adrian Newey. You've got the, like, forget Cadillac, like, let's not even call them a team. Like, you've got the worst car of the year, and you've got you've paid all this money for Adrian Newey, and you've got the worst car in the year.
And Cadillac is out qualifying Aston Martin, despite their brakes and their cars catching fire. You know, it's really astonishingly bad how poorly they're performing. There's something about this car that just doesn't. It shouldn't exist. You know, the Aston Martin car. It's just so bad. Yeah, I think
this is Cadillac's first year. They're allowed to be. They're allowed to be last. They're allowed to be last for a few years.
They're getting some good mileage out of those fire extinguishers. That's for sure.
Aston Martin have just poured more and more and more money into this thing. You know, the team owner has hired his own son, even though he's, whatever. Like, it just feels almost like, it feels karmic to me, the Aston story.
But as you see with Alonso, it's not like a different driver would be outperforming in that other car.
Absolutely not.
Stroll is actually, not that far off Alonso.
1 point. Only 1 point.
No, I mean in terms of performance.
That was a joke. If you want to know what that joke was, it's that Fernando's got 1 point and Stroll has got 0. So Fernando is slightly ahead.
Oh, yeah, it's depressing, isn't it? Considering the resources that they do have, but also, you bring in a talent like Adrian Newey, you don't make him team principal or whatever that role was that he had temporarily. Yeah, and then you also look at the sort of revolving door of team principals that they've had in the past. Clearly, there's not an interest or a capability to build properly for the future and to set up infrastructure, to build a team that can sort of go through the lows and the highs and to achieve success together. It just seems like it's unattainable. And they must be looking at a team like Alpine and thinking, what the hell? How is it that they can make it work, but we can't? What are they doing so much better and different? They've got a driver like Colapinto, frankly, who just, I wouldn't even put Colapinto at Stroll's level. That's maybe a harsh thing to say, but
he's done all right this year.
Yeah, but I'd put that down more to the package than to him.
Than him.
It's they must just be looking at Alpine and thinking, well, hang on, you guys were worse than us last year. How are you suddenly popping up? How does Gasly have 32 points? How does Gasly have a podium at Monaco? What is happening here? And Fernando must be feeling so frustrated. Do you remember a couple of years ago, I think it was 2024, where Fernando Alonso qualified P3 or P2 at Monaco, and it was all going to be so grand. But yeah, now I'm more and more thinking even he probably doesn't have the faith anymore to sort of stick out another year of a failed Newey project. I just don't see that happening.
Yeah, well,
sad as it would make me. But he should go off and join the World Endurance Championship hypercar program with Aston Martin. Take Stroll with him. Go and do good things over there. Go win Le Mans again.
On a closing note, like, it's easy to overlook, but not a bad weekend at all for Oscar Piastri, P4. Mm-hmm. Where did he qualify? 7th to 4th. Like, that's a really good race for Oscar in a car that's clearly, at least the 3rd fastest, if not 4th. I'm impressed by that. And I think, I don't know, it's just nice to see Oscar driving a race like this. You know, he was consistent. We weren't thinking much about him, I don't think, through the race because there was some other more exciting battles going on. But like, good on Oscar, P4. Would love to see him build on that, and would love to see the McLarens kind of bring something to Silverstone.
Yeah, well, he overtook his it's his World Drivers' Championship teammate
In the first lap,
and then,
wasn't it?
yeah,
It was straight away.
and
Yeah.
then he gave manners to Norris, and then what else did he do? He overtook Leclerc. So P7 to P4. Who else is in the way? Hamilton. No, Hamilton.
Yeah.
That doesn't make sense. Oh yeah, Hamilton. He got past Hamilton. Yeah, I think it's a good call out, and I think in the interviews afterwards he was saying, there's a lot of positives to take away from that because this year there haven't been that many positives, but they had decent pace, and then they were able to make the most of it, and the cars didn't go pop midway through the race, which quite a few. In fact, this is one of the maybe undercurrent or stories of the season so far is the reliability factor. Last round we had 8 cars that didn't finish. That was a new record. Previously we've had 2 races where 6 or 7 cars didn't finish. Like, it's tough to finish a race in these cars in these conditions. So, and the whole chatter about battery upgrades and the
Overheating batteries and
that's it. Yeah, overheating drivers, overheating brakes. The whole thing. Like, this year is not a walk in the park for anyone, despite how it might look on paper for Mercedes. Yeah. But man, oh man, I am so pumped for the British Grand Prix. I love the British Grand Prix. I love that circuit. It just does something for me. What about you, Gav? Does it like warm the spirit?
just the flow of that. I mean, it's where I lived for 20 years. It's 30 years actually, but it's such a bleak location. Like you said earlier on, it's like an airfield. Like
it's a big contrast from the Styrian Mountains, that's for sure.
It's a big contrast. It's a big contrast to what's coming with Spa and some of these beautiful circuits, and even Azerbaijan, where you're going through like kind of these fake ancient cities and stuff. It's like, how about we just do it on an airfield? Because that's British. It's like meat and 2 veg, isn't it? It's like bland food, bland racetrack, so kind of in terms of scenery. But what a fast flowing track. I mean, obviously Monaco's iconic, but like, I feel like Silverstone's like a real driver's track. Like Cops, it's got some of the most incredible corners on the calendar. It's so on the edge, and I can't wait to see these cars that have so much less ground effect tackle some of these very, very long, high speed, like full send at corners. I think we're going to see a lot of people kind of spinning off into the gravel. I think we're going to see a lot of traction issues. It'd be fun.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's that I think it's going to be one of those energy starved tracks as well, because even though there are lots of corners, there are lots of long straights between them where you'll be utilizing a battery as you go down the Hangar Straight, for instance, or the Wellington Straight. So I think there will be, like one of the examples from this race in Austria was Leclerc, battling against Hamilton, where he just fully deployed his battery and then had nothing. And I think, it was Hamilton who was able to get past him so easily and then gap him pretty quickly because he just didn't have the battery management.
Does that mean Silverstone will be more boring then? Because if we don't have, we've got rid of DRS, which is effective on straights, so you can follow closely. Previously with the ground effect cars, if you follow closely enough through the detection zone within 1 second, you get the DRS, so you get to use that in the straight. Do you think because there won't be as much super clipping, as much harvesting, do you think it could end up actually being potentially a bit more of a dull race than we've seen over the last 5 years, because actually you get to that straight and you don't have much to deploy? Could it actually not suit these cars? Is there a world where it doesn't suit these cars? What do you think?
The Hangar Straight should be okay because it's got Maggotts and Beckett's beforehand. That world-class series of corners. So you've got to get through that, and then you've got the battery to get down the Hangar Straight and get into Cops. I don't know. I think it will be interesting. And the other thing that's potentially always on the cards is rain. At Silverstone, if you remember last year, it was basically like zero visibility because of the rain that happened during the race. So I don't know, man. I think there'll be a purpose for getting those intermediate tyres out come the British Grand Prix. Maybe McLaren will make the right choice about wet weather tyres, unlike in Canada where they put on intermediates when everyone else knew that the track was dry. No, I think it's going to be a banger, man. I'm looking forward to it. I don't think it's going to be a dull race. Maybe I'll be wrong, but I think there'll be plenty in it. And the other thing about it is because the drivers, I think what we're going to see is a kind of a Noah's Ark. This is my prediction for the British Grand Prix. Because the drivers are actually quite evenly matched now. You've got Piastri and Norris driving, much the same. We've got the same with Hamilton and Leclerc, Kimi and George. I think we're going to see inter-team battles more than we're going to see, like intra-team battles rather than inter-team battles. That's my prediction for this weekend. What's the weather forecast? I cannot see your screen, bro. What does it say?
0% chance of rain Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. 25 degrees, full sunlight. I think unless something changes dramatically, we're in for a dry race, which is good. It's good. I mean, it's always more fun. Like there was this kind of threat of rain, wasn't there?
Oh, that was such a small
at the Red Bull Ring. It was just like there's this little pocket of rain, just like tiny, like this kind of size, just like sitting out there, and everyone's kind of like, we love a bit of rain, but no, Silverstone looks dry all the way through. So
can I make a statement to the universe? Can we get rid of this rubbish drone footage? That the drone cam in the Austrian Grand Prix made me sick. It was useless. I couldn't follow the racing. It was like such an unnecessary distraction.
You're talking about the bit where they sweep around with it.
Yes, I hate it. I want to get rid of the drone footage. I don't want it to ever make a return. In years gone by, they had the drones going up and down at various circuits during practice. And I thought, not for the race. And they kept it out of the race, which is the right way to do it. That was rubbish. I mean, did you enjoy the sort of sense of disorientation and distraction that the drone footage brought into the race? Did you enjoy that, Gab? Was that a good addition for you?
My friend, I'm second guessing myself now because obviously I respect you so much, Jace. I respect what you think. Maybe not aesthetically and taste-wise, but I do respect what you think about. Okay, no, I'm feeling better as I say that. No, I really enjoyed it. I really liked it. I loved it.
I almost did a spit take just then.
I liked it. Like, not too much, don't get me wrong, but I like that woozy. I think what they're trying for in that is to give you a sense of like the kind of the woozy pace of it. It reminded me actually of the F1 movie. They had kind of some of that stuff in the F1 movie.
Yeah.
Look, I didn't hate it as much as you. I love the fact that you hated it. I think hating things is really, really good in the right context. Interesting. Didn't expect. I could have easily heard you say tonight how much you loved it, but no, you didn't. You hated it. I think. Look, I'll see you at Silverstone. It's going to be 25 to 7 degrees and sunny, unless the BBC have got it wrong. I can't wait to see how these cars perform. This new era of cars perform on this track. I hope you're right. I hope we get lots of super clipping and lots of deployment down the hangar. See you in Great Britain, my friend.
Ahoy hoy.
Yabba dabba doo.
Bye, mate.
Bye bye.